Hey guys, Josh from PHP vLog. This is the second video, but also kind of the first video in the series, as the one before this was sort of like an introduction to my editor. Today I'm going to cover three things. The first of which is PHP files themselves. That's saving, opening, editing, and how to store them on a server, as well as naming conventions for them. I'm also going to discuss the opening and closing PHP tag, comments, and finally I'll cover variables. So, PHP files. First of all, with Notepad++, as long as you have the language PHP selected, then it will default to a PHP file. You see PHP hypertext preprocessor file. Now I'm just gonna kind of save it to PHP vids. Why not? And what I'll do is the file name is here. It says new one. And on PHP, there's a couple things as far as file names go that you want to keep it to in order to make sure that your user automatically sees this content. If you name it something like Josh from PHP vlog, that's not what the web server is going to default to, unless of course you set it, which is possible, but for the sake of this video I'm just going to go with the defaults. There are three defaults that I use. Index.php is the one that I use very predominantly. I like it, it makes sense to me. There's also default.php, and finally you can use home.php. Most web servers, Apache in particular, supports all three, but there are others that only support index. So I would recommend always using index if you can help it. Other times, if you have a whole lot of projects, I don't really like to have every file named index when I have a bunch of projects. I kind of like to name the file something like, CMS for Gaming League or whatever. That way, whenever I go to upload it, sure, I can just rename it to index real quick, but at least when it's on my computer, even though it's inside a folder, I'll still know the primary PHP file. Anyways, so index.php is what you do to save it. And of course, a cool thing about Notepad++ is that if you have a brand new file and you just type some code here, PHP, you see that it doesn't have any of the syntax highlighting. But once we go to File and we go to Save and we go to PHP, which is kind of down here at the bottom, and we name it, sure, let's just leave it new 2, you click Save, you'll see that it automatically sets up all the syntax highlighting now that it knows that it's a PHP file. Comments in PHP. In any language, comments are an extremely useful commodity. It really doesn't matter if you're coding 10 lines or 10,000 lines. Comments will save your life. I'm telling you right now. You're going to come back to this script in a month because you gave up on the project or you finished it and you wanted to add something, and you're going to see some cryptic code, char cbuff whatever 0x00100, and you're going to be like, what the hell am I doing right here? I don't understand what I'm doing. So that's why comments are a lifesaver. There are two types of comments in PHP. That is the line comment and the block comment. So the first thing is a line comment, which is a single line. It is 2 forward slashes, and then whatever you type after the forward slashes, for example, hey dude, this is our comment. Everything to the next line is no longer a comment. It is now code. A block comment is a forward slash, a star, and then a star, and a forward slash. So you see how it spans many lines. Anything that's in between the forward slash star and star forward slash is a comment. And there is an infinite amount of lines that it can go. The compiler, which anybody that doesn't really know, PHP isn't actually compiled, it's interpreted by the web server. But regardless, no matter what compiler or what internet browser in our case you're using, it's never ever going to read what's in the comment. So you can put in here whatever it is that you'd like to put in here. I like to put in the beginning of all of mine, and I think maybe you might want to as well, is the author, Josh from PHP vlog. I like to put the date, which is 12/16/2011, and maybe even the time, 8:38 p.m. And then perhaps you'll put something like a description. This file is used to help my viewers, that would be you guys, learn a little bit, oh, misspelling there, learn a little bit about block and line comments. Hope you enjoy. And I do hope you guys enjoy these videos. If not, oh well, I'm gonna cry. Probably, not really though. Of course, lastly but certainly not least, I wanted to cover variables. Variables are just like the epitome of awesomeness. I'm telling you, variables can store anything. And in PHP, any variable can store anything, and it's just so amazing. So, first of all, I'm going to show you how to declare a variable. You declare a variable by putting the $ on screen, typing it with your keyboard, and then giving the variable a name. In my case, I'm just going to call it variable1. Okay, and you'll see that it kind of gets like a light blue shade to it, and that's because Notepad++ just loves my variables and is nice to me. One of the first things I kind of wanted to point out is that if you're going to declare a variable, you have to make sure that you use the same variable name throughout the entire script. This is because the PHP language is case sensitive. So the way I have it typed right now and the way I have it typed now are two completely different variables. If you can see, this is lowercase, this is uppercase. You've got two completely different variables. Another thing I kind of wanted to cover is declaring your variables even if you're not going to use them. It doesn't matter if you're going to use it in an hour, 2 hours, 6 hours, or 10,000 lines from now. Give it a value. You don't want to just have empty memory space just sitting there, because then your variables will collect whatever random data is at the address at which the variable is declared. And that's not really an issue, but you never know. And why honestly get into a bad habit, Another thing that I do, which I consider to be a good habit and is totally up to you, is that I give my variables the naming convention of the variable type it is. In PHP, you don't have to declare that your variable is an integer or a boolean value, a float. You don't have to declare that string, char, none of that stuff is required. So in my case, if I'm going to use a variable, I like to give it a little bit of probably like a 1 or 2 character name before the actual variable name so that I know what kind of variable it is. So I'm going to make a variable that I'm going to use to hold a counting number. So let's just say that I'm counting up and down based on what's going on. So that's obviously going to be an integer. I will put I, and then I'll put count. So that way I know if I ever look at the variable in the future that it's supposed to be an integer. And of course, I'll give it a number, assign it a number, like 0. Okay. So let's say that I want to do a string. Okay, I like to use sz for my strings. So I'll say sz first name equals Josh, and then maybe sz last name equals Underwood. Is that really my last name? I don't know. Let me check my drivers. Yep, that's my last name. Boolean values, true or false values. Kind of the same thing. I like to put a B in front of it, and I'll put B maybe on or off. It's kind of a silly looking variable name, but it's whatever. And then of course Boolean values are true or false, 1 or 0. True being on, false being off, and 1 is actually on while 0 is off. So that covers the 3 basic types of variables, and of course these variables are all interchangeable. So then that can kind of cause confusion, but you'll get used to it. In this case, I've got iCount equals 5. Well, then I can come down and do iCount equals hello guys, and it will no longer be an integer variable, but will have become a string variable. So again, I know that can be kind of confusing, but if you have any questions, just post in the comments down below, and I'll get back to you either inbox. I might even make another video depending on how unclear I was, but regardless, you will get your answer, I promise guys. I look forward to my next video coming out. I'm going to start covering the echo function, and I'm probably even going to start some of the I/O functions for like files, how to read from a file, how to write to a file, that kind of thing. I really can't wait for MySQL, but it's coming. Alright guys, Josh from PHP vLog, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.